Live from a grungy kitchen table located in Annapolis, Maryland's scenic and historic capital, it's the Maryland Crabs Podcast. With each episode, your hosts, Tim Hamilton, John Frenay, and the occasional guest will dive in and pick apart the stuff that really matters most to you. We're too lazy to actually solve any of these problems, but we can definitely stir the pot. From schools, politics, parking in the fire lane, to those horrible people who drive BMWs. And here with this week's episode, live from the kitchen table, Tim Hamilton and John Frenay.
Good afternoon. It's the Maryland Crabs. We're back again. Happy New Year to everybody. Hopefully you had a safe and wonderful New Year. I had a relaxing, chilling one. This is John, and I got Tim Hamilton over here.
You got him.
And this is the Maryland Crabs. And hey, we want to thank you guys very much again for all of the downloads, all of the subscriptions. Is that what they're called? Subscriptions?
You kiss ass a lot.
I guess so. But that you've done. I mean, we had a terrific month in December. The audience still continues to grow. So please send us your suggestions, your comments, your criticisms. And we've gotten a lot of them. Surprisingly, we got some from Montgomery County.
Well, not criticisms. Really cool. You got criticisms. We got some nice suggestions from them. We got a lot of suggestions, a couple from Montgomery County, which was nice.
Well, I got the ones that said I was an ass for not showing up at the Ebb Tide.
Yes, but those are all from me. So
but hey, I've still got the cake in the part of the cake in the refrigerator. If you guys want to have it after this
cake. One. Actually, would be good.
But yeah, but thank you all very much for following us. You can follow us on Twitter at MD Crabs Podcast. Online, themarylandcrabs.com. Facebook, The Maryland Crabs. There's a pair of pages there. Subscribe to us on iTunes, iHeartRadio. We're on there right now, as well as Google Play. iHeartRadio, their search function is not working well. They're looking into it, but we'll have it on the
But you definitely want to subscribe. That's the key, because that way you don't have to track us down.
Yeah, so it'll come to you any which way you want to do it. And that's about it. Our interview, or not interview, but our discussion with Governor Hogan was wonderful. And that's people are just still all over that.
I got the feels.
Yeah,
it was good.
It absolutely was.
He actually, I think they actually texted back afterwards that they had a good time, and I don't think they were condescending.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they might have been. I have a hard time discerning that.
Yeah, well, we've got a couple good things coming up too. We're going to be talking with Anne Arundel County State's Attorney Wes Adams soon. We're going to be talking with Mayor Pandelides. We're also going to be talking with candidate Pandelides, and apparently they have two different hats they've got to wear. So we'll have to
because our political system. If you're sick of the U.S. Election, our election is gearing up here in Annapolis. And on that note, we have Marc Rodriguez, who is the Uberkind, according to the Capital article over the weekend. He's one to watch. So we're watching you, Mark.
Yeah.
We got our eye on you, buddy.
Put the stapler down, dude.
Yeah.
How are you? Thank you for coming out, Mark.
Thank you.
Especially on last minute notice. I know that Tim failed to get somebody to come talk, and he called you at midnight last night, and you agreed to do it. And
so I texted a guest.
Anything for Tim.
See?
Oh, there you go. There's some history there.
Someone's going to get a lot of texts like 2 a.m. from now on.
But let me take a shot at butchering what and who Marc Rodriguez is. Okay. Marc is a resident of Annapolis, I believe in Ward 5. Mm-hmm. And he came on the scene when Alderman Littmann realized that the Hispanic community, I don't want to say was underrepresented, but just really needed some sort of a liaison and to get more involved in the community.
Well, it's a big part of Ward 5 too, which is along Forest Drive. So you have the Forest Hills community, and then what's the name of that apartment complex?
Admiral Farragut.
Right. Yeah. So I think there's 4 neighborhoods that are primarily Latino in that I know in the city, and that's the big one. A lot of them are in Ward 5.
That's right.
So Alderman Littmann basically said, "Hey, I've got a budget of 0. So I'm looking for somebody to bust their ass for free."
So apparently you've stolen my
everybody
my
stepped back
plan.
And Mark was standing out in front of the line.
He's paying me with wisdom and experience.
And is that basically how you came about with where you are right now to be one of the ones to watch?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I was surprised and honored at the same time that the Capitol reached out to me to keep me in check and watch me carefully over the next year. But I came to the role with Jared, primarily because I was living abroad for a little bit in Hong Kong, and I was in finance and consulting, a whole different world. And I wanted to come back to to go to law school. So I'm currently in law school as well,
Where?
doing a part-time American University.
Oh, really? My daughter's over at American.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh.
Undergrad.
What's she studying?
Public policy and international relations.
Great.
She's here on break now. How awkward would it be if she walked in and they just saw each other and it got really awkward?
But
That's your dad?
you commuting out there?
Yeah, so I do the evening classes 4 times a week.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. And so with that, I came back. My mother's a teacher at Annapolis High School. She's a department chair of the ESOL department, English for speakers of other languages. And so when I came back over a year ago, I started substitute teaching as well as volunteering in some of their evening high school programs. They have a great program called Community Plaza, which is a partnership between Anne Arundel Community Public School System and Anne Arundel County Public School System and the Mexican Education Secretariat to provide online free education in Spanish or English for those who prefer, but it's focused on adult Hispanics and children as well. So you can obtain your primary, secondary, high school degree, and you get a certificate from the Mexican government if you haven't completed it. So I was volunteering there, and so I started to work a lot with the community and get to know a lot of the Hispanic and Latino community here in Annapolis. I think being in the classroom, you really get to understand what's going on in the city.
You're from Mexico?
I'm from Mexico, so I was born and raised in Mexico City.
Okay.
My mother's American.
Irish American.
Irish American.
Let's point that out. We're going to start drinking.
And my father's Mexican, and I would spend most of my summers growing up here in Annapolis. We always had a home here because my mother's side of the family, her 2 sisters live here.
Okay, so you're a long time resident or with roots here.
That's right. I mean, our home was in Hillsmere growing up, and I used to even swim with the Hammerheads, the Hillsmere Hammerheads.
Oh, right, the swimming team.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, just out of curiosity, I mean, you lived in Mexico, you grew up in Mexico, and America's the only country that isn't bilingual per se, and obviously I'm presuming that you're bilingual in Spanish and English. Are you trilingual?
Well, I'm trilingual. I speak 4 languages. I say 4 languages, but I'm really trilingual because I speak Chinese and Italian as well, but pretty poorly. So hopefully that'll add up.
Yeah, don't even bring that up. Just it's pathetic you even bring that up. I dabble in Chinese and Italian.
No, well, Italian only because I took a little bit in college and I did a semester abroad in Florence, and it's because it's the Latin roots of the language. It's similar to Spanish in a way, so it was easy to learn. And then I lived in Hong Kong for 7 years, so I picked up a little, like how to order a beer,
my
go to
son
the
and I
bathroom.
went to Hong Kong a while ago, and I hated it when I was there. But the more I stayed away from it, the more I was referring back to it. Like, oh, do you remember when we were in Hong Kong when we did this and we did that? And it was I didn't say I didn't hate it when I was there, but I mean, it wasn't as impressive as I was there as the more I was away from it to see how dynamic the city it really was. It was. I remember my funny experience in Hong Kong was in the Bottoms Up, which is the James Bond speakeasy. In the one, I can't remember which film it was, but it was a speakeasy that James Bond went to, and sort of a tourist trap. So said, "Hey, let's go down there," and we thought it was like a strip club, and which is essentially what it was. So we get down there, and then they're like, "Oh, American businessmen," and we're like, well, "There's no dancers here. What's this is kind of odd." But then maybe that's how they roll here, So we're going with it. My friend was like not drinking, so he's like that, and I said, "I'll take a scotch," and they're like, "Okay, that's fine. It's 300 Hong Kong or whatever. I can't remember what it was." And
300 Hong Kong.
which wasn't much. I mean, it was like
the
$9.
exchange rate is 7.78 Hong Kong dollars per US dollar. It's fixed. It's pegged.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. It wasn't much. So all of a sudden, these 2 girls come out and they're dressed. I mean, they're like, "Oh, hey, how are you?" Talking, and they're like, "Oh, okay, well, this is how it works." And they said, "You want to buy us some wine?" And we're like, "Sure, no problem."
Before you go any further, are we going to put an explicit on this episode?
No,
or is that just? I'm making that decision right now.
So we say, "Yeah, fine, we'll buy them a glass of wine." And the bartender, puts them up there and says, "Okay, well, that'll be like $2,500 Hong Kong." And we're like, "Whoa, wait a minute! I got the scotch here, and it's like $300, and they're like, "Well, yeah, this is wine for the dancers." I'm like, "Well, I didn't really bargain on this."
You figure they get an employee discount anyway. They work there.
I said, "No, never mind." And they said, "Well, you still got to pay for it." I said, "Well, I don't have enough money." They said, "Well, yeah, you do, because we saw in your wallet when you paid for your drinks to start with." And then they pointed to like this dusty old sign behind the bar, the price list to pay for girls and wines, and we're like, my friend John and I were like, I said, okay, we're out of here. And we ended up running up the steps, and there was some old lady up on the street that was attracting attention down into it. Just like says, you got to come back and chase us down. We ended up running down. It was over in Simsashui.
Yeah.
Over
in Kowloon. Yeah. It was old Hong Kong.
Yeah. So it was, that was my experience there. It didn't work out real well, so.
I went to Canada once.
Glen Burnie. But your job here with Alderman Littmann is to.
So he brought me on board, and first I'm really happy and blessed and excited that I got to work with him over this last year and continue to do so. He brought me on board originally to assist him with all sorts of things, different legislation, policy, and issues. I've gotten to work with him on those, but primarily to help identify and address the issues and challenges in the Hispanic and Latino community. As you mentioned earlier, I would probably use the term underrepresented, just because if you look at it from a city point of view, there's very little representation of Hispanic and Latinos. Mm-hmm. So whether it's obviously there's no Hispanic and Latino in the city council, there never has been, and then if you go through the city's boards and commissions. It's lacking there as well significantly.
Probably because it's a newer immigrant group, and then that follows that regular pattern that
right.
They have no political capital yet.
Yeah,
and you see that's happening very quickly. One thing that I find interesting is that, especially on the East Coast, we treat the Latino community as a monolithic sort of thing. Mm-hmm. That it's it's Latino, Hispanic, whatever.
Yeah,
but it's very different culturally. It's very different. You as Mexican American or Mexican citizen, actually, but you have a different experience and different background, and culturally is different than the areas Latinos, which are probably mostly Salvadorian in this area.
Yeah,
in New York, you have Puerto Rican, Dominican.
Yep.
But I mean, I lived in New Mexico for about 5 or 6 years, and down there the Latinos, they weren't Latino. They called themselves Hispano, which was very different. That was that they insisted that they were Hispano because they were direct descendants of the Spanish explorers. So they had no mestizo, which is a mixture of the Spanish and Indian blood. So I mean, my point is that then they thought that they were ground zero for what was the Hispanic experience. So because they hadn't come to the East Coast. So to you is you're coming from a cultural background that's different than even the Latinos that are here.
That's right. Yeah. No, definitely. It's not a monolithic group. There's a lot of diversity within the Hispanic and Latino community. In Annapolis, the majority are Salvadoran, and then you would see probably Mexican, and then Guatemalan, and then Honduran. And they're, many are come for different reasons. My background, obviously, I grew up in Mexico City, and growing up in Mexico City, I did witness abject poverty growing up. I mean, I saw it, I was around it. And my mother, being an archaeologist, she would pull us out of school 2-3 months out of the year, and we'd go to the rural areas where her digs were, where the excavation sites are, and live there.
Was that like in southern Mexico, or is
that was in Veracruz, which is in the Gulf Coast. So the exact location is called San Lorenzo Tenochtitlan. And so my mother, she's an archaeobiologist, so she did her specialty. She deals with ancient plant remains. But we were there when they discovered some of the Olmec heads. The Olmecs are the mother, were the mother civilization of Mesoamerica, and so, I mean, they're the ones that they have those heads that they have the colossal heads.
Yeah, but they also said that they have the Polynesian characteristics, because they have the facial characteristics. So now they did some really interesting DNA stuff, where they're finding some genetic markers from Polynesia in some of the indigenous Indians in those areas. Yeah, but I digress.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And so, I guess where I'm going with that is that with that background of actually growing up in Latin America, growing up in Mexico, traveling through there and having real experiences there in that setting, and then I can relate, I can understand, I can empathize with the community here in Annapolis. When someone decides to leave their country, their country of origin, it's not an easy process. Oftentimes many are leaving because of a tragic event-driven situation. With perhaps maybe let's take El Salvador for example, with MS-13 gang presence there. And then the journey through Mexico, they're going through an informal network there, is sometimes terrifying for them. There's elements of trafficking, of sex trafficking, human trafficking, and then they finally arrive in the States, and many are caught in, for example, detention centers, and so their experience is quite traumatic. And what they want at the end of the day is just to contribute and have a better life. And so they want to follow they need ethical guidance to follow the rules and regulations and adapt to Annapolis. But it's a new country when the inherent risk of picking up from one country moving to another is great.
So they're looking for help with the rules.
Well,
maybe,
of course,
in a way,
definitely. If they want, they're new American families. They want to contribute. They're our neighbors. They're our friends. They're our coworkers. And we come from a strong sense of community, and family and contributing and working together. And they're looking for that opportunity. And so it's not necessarily in terms of looking for help. It's not like help me, but it is.
Not a welfare type of assistance.
Not a welfare type of assistance.
They're just looking for a knowledge and education.
Yeah, and I think it's incumbent upon us to be able to provide meaningful access, so that they can also obtain the support network and resources that we all have access to. And at the end of the day, when I talk about Latino and Hispanic issues, it's not. I'm not just necessarily doing it like waving the Latino flag, saying this is what we need to do for the community. This is what we need. I see it as whatever impacts, and this goes for any community or any group within Annapolis. If you want to call it groups or communities or separated by that, it impacts every individual and every family in Annapolis. So take the Hispanic Latino community, who are this, a large portion of them are disaffected or of the rest of the society here in Annapolis. You get so let's take the public safety. Crime is severely underreported in the Hispanic and Latino community. So if we work with a community in order to bridge that gap of trust with the police and other authorities in the city, then victims, witnesses will be able to come forward and start to have that relationship. With the environment, the Hispanic Latino community use the parks and recreational centers quite, they use them a lot.
Culturally, that's a big thing.
It's a huge thing.
When I lived in New Mexico, it was hilarious. Not hilarious, but around lunch, it was hilarious. I'd be going at lunchtime, I'd be passing the parks, and you have people, guys in suits, just lying on the ground. I thought they got mugged, but no, they just the parks are a huge part of the Hispanic and Latin.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. And so, but you have many individuals fishing in areas where the water quality is not good. You shouldn't be fishing there. It's not safe. But no one's telling them that. There's no again, that guidance, that ethical guidance around that. You take businesses, this is an immigrant community in general, and then, this is not a new lesson, but most of the businesses are started by immigrants. Most of the new businesses in Maryland alone, it's the numbers, it's huge. And so if I go and I require assistance with the city and I want to open a business, and I go and I ask them, and I ask them, if I speak English, and I go in and they can help me identify a location. If I can't obtain traditional financing, they could perhaps assist me with that, market study, locations, walking you through the step, permits, etc. But if I'm a limited English proficient person or individual, I want to open a business, I don't have that same access or those same resources. So I have to hire a firm, it can cost $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 to do everything for me so that I can open a business. So I think if we help facilitate that and integrate the community and really support that entrepreneurial spirit that the Hispanic Latino community have, it's better for everyone, because the economic quality of life will improve, the tax base will increase as well. And so I see it as how it affects everyone. And you take a simple matter, for example, that seems simple, but it was a major issue when I first started with Jared. We were getting a lot of calls of some of the neighborhoods in Ward 5 saying, you know what, some of our neighbors, and we later learned that many were the Hispanic or Latino neighbors, aren't following the rules around trash collection. So they were taking out the trash in plastic bags versus the containers, and so they were taking them on the wrong days as well, and so the trash bags would get torn open and trash would spread, and so this was a major issue that really affected the neighbors in the neighborhood. And so we addressed it. We went over there and we spoke with some of the neighbors, and we realized that no one had ever provided them with the information as to how they were supposed to take the trash out, and then what days and so forth. And so what we did was, the city has these door hangers with the information of how to properly do your trash, but it was only in English. So I translated them. The city printed them, and we went door to door, spoke with some of the neighbors on how to handle the trash, left them information in Spanish, and it's helped a lot.
It's a stupid thing that we would take for granted, and one of the most simple solutions.
Yep.
Well, if you look at it, I mean, the city in general, I mean, we take Ward 5 just because that's what we're talking about, but you look at the microcosm that it's just everyone's mixed together. They want the same things. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you're seeing that integration now with immigrant communities, where you're seeing, like, now their kids are going to school with my kids in the public schools. And even if you go to St. Mary's, you're seeing a lot of the Latino kids there. And I say even because it's expensive, but you're seeing that integration into they're buying cars, they're buying homes. So it's been, we're like in stage 3 or 4. I looked up the stages of immigrant acceptance, and I mean, they've been demonized on a larger scale as part of the election, and it makes for a convenient demonization. But there's also I've had arguments before where I say there's a practical side to that, is that the United States has to be somewhat responsible for our policies in Central America during the 80s with the Sandinistas and the Contras, and we supported brutal dictators or brutal governments, and brutal rebel groups, and so what do we? And there was reasons behind that. I'm not saying that was a proxy war. Yeah. But there was collateral damage, and those are the people who are flooding up here now. I mean, it didn't happen in a vacuum. Yep. And so I mean, I think we got to say that we're not the innocent victims of a flood of immigration, and we're at net zero immigration. We have been for 3 years now.
That's right.
We're at absolute net zero, which means that there is no fluctuation in the numbers of immigrants. There's the same amount that are leaving that are coming in. Yeah. So we've been net zero. We're not being overrun. We're not being invaded.
And that's a major cause for concern, because exactly, a lot of people don't know that information, and where it affects immigration is also it's a labor issue, and if you continue with these policies, anti-immigrant policies, there's going to be a labor shortage. You go today here in Annapolis, you speak to some of the restaurant owners, offices that visit.
It happened in Iceland.
Yeah,
it happened in Iceland 2 years ago with the Eastern Europeans, with the Lithuanians and Estonians, who are the workforce. The Eastern Europeans, they all left Iceland.
Yeah, and so there is a labor shortage already in Annapolis. Like, restaurants are looking for more workers, and what I intend to do is, of course, jobs are essential, and my kind of philosophy of supporting the community is that, okay, someone comes here from another country for whatever reason, and these are the kind of jobs perhaps they can obtain first and foremost in the service industry, in the restaurants, and so forth. But for too many of the children who arrive here, and they're in school. But they're young kids living adult lives. They're working 2-3 jobs, 6-7 days a week, after school, before school, whenever they can. And then high school graduation is a terminal experience for too many of them. And so what I think we need to provide is, again, a support network and resources so that they can have upward mobility through the generations. And so that's when they graduate in high school, they just revert back to working the jobs they were working when they first arrived. I think, and that benefits everyone.
All right, so your political career looking forward. So you're one to watch, obviously. What do you envision happening over there? What's your 5-year plan? I'm like interviewing. It's a job interview.
Well, I mean, the worst secret that was kept in Annapolis is that you're going to be running for Ward 5 alderman.
That's right.
Because Alderman,
I want him to say that and be all dramatic.
Oh, okay. So what are you going to be doing?
Yeah, what are you going to be doing?
Well, first of all, I mean, I'm really happy that Jared has been extremely supportive. He's been a great friend, a great mentor. I've learned so much from him, because Jared is all about just doing the right thing.
So you're happy he's leaving?
No, of course not. No, not at all. And so I've really learned a lot with Jared. He's very proactive, introducing legislation that's important for Annapolis and the quality of life that we all seek. And so the main thing is I hope to continue to work on and build on and advance a lot of the initiatives that he's worked on. In the environment, for example. I've been able to work with him on a few of the pieces of legislation. Forest Conservation Act, no net loss right now is currently the next topic. So in terms of going forward this year, I hope to work with him on a few pieces of legislation. Our main legislative agenda that I'm working on closely with him is the Non-Discrimination of Foreign-Born Residents Ordinance, which will become introduced on Monday. So it's January 9th City Council meeting. The no net loss legislation, we're going to revisit the Food for Fines program as well. And then the other thing that you perhaps saw in the article of the Capitol is I'm currently doing Leadership Anne Arundel. Great program.
Yeah, it's a good organization.
It's a great organization. Lots of wonderful people. They've been very supportive. And we're working on a project where we can help identify, recruit, develop, and mentor future Hispanic and Latino leaders. And more of a neighborhood approach where we have them working on specific issues that affect people. And this I see this as moving forward because there, for example, there is tension, and you see this in many areas, but there's tension between the African American community and the Hispanic community oftentimes. People can think about it from different ways, and oftentimes it comes down to competing for resources or the perception of competing for resources and so forth. So what we want to do is have communities work together on issues that affect their neighborhoods. So you can get Latinos and African Americans and others working together on issues that affect their daily life in their neighborhood. And I think that'll start to improve relations. That'll start to create more understanding. That'll start to benefit, all Annapolitans.
I think you look at the way the city's broken out, and we're a small city geographically, but I mean, it's clustered. There are very few neighborhoods that are integrated. Mine is, but even so, in the neighborhood, it's kind of clustered within the neighborhood. But I mean, you have your black neighborhoods, you have public housing, you have your white neighborhoods, upper class, like Fishing Creek Farms or Bay Ridge or parts of Bay Ridge, but then you have the Latino neighborhoods. So I mean, you still have that where there's. I mean, if you go down on Forest Drive, you go to somewhere like El Cabrito, or you go to Giant, or you go somewhere, you're seeing everybody together, by necessity. But if you're going to a barbecue, you're going to a party. I mean, it's still people don't like to say it. They like to think we're post-racial.
Well, the Capitol did a story about
that was a good one. Yeah, it's like
the two worlds of Annapolis.
It was really good.
The two cities, Tale of Two Cities.
No, it was. What was that called? Yeah, I guess it was something like that.
It was the haves, the have-nots. It was the blacks, the whites. It was.
But you and I talked about that when it's funny if you go on YouTube, that there were these YouTubes and there's like these young black dudes in
public housing, Robinwood, and Eastport Terrace, doing these fantastic.
They were doing these
rap songs.
But they're doing these great political commentary and stuff, and that's something that we like. We know it's a small town, so we kind of know what's going on. And we know who are like the players and who. And these are guys I'd never heard of, and you think they're probably in the communities of public housing. They're probably big deals.
They're rock stars.
So I mean, but that we had no idea that they were until we saw it. I mean, we're middle-aged guys.
Is that the type of thing that you're seeing that you think exists in the Latino community? I mean, are they so cohesive that there are certain people? I mean, okay, Walter Vasquez has somewhat emerged as a leader of the community. I mean the Godfather,
but he's someone that's very vocal to the Anglo community. That he's kind of like the representative. But are there leaders? Is there a world like a world in the Latino community that just goes unnoticed by the rest of Annapolitans, or is it just?
Oh, definitely. And this is one of the reasons why we need to be proactive about our outreach and integration with the community, because there's an informal credit union, there's an informal taxi network, there's informal markets, there's a whole world in Annapolis, and it's for survival and sense of community and going together. So, for example, they have the system set up where you get a group within the community, and you're each paying in every month in your salary. Each person puts in $200 into the pot, right? And then each month it's someone else's turn to collect that money, as a loan, to use it for the purchase of something that costs more money, for example, a car or something else. And that's how they're financing
Wow.
a lot of the things.
I know that the Asian community, or certain Asian communities, have something similar, like on the West Coast, when they'd come over, is that they would set up in like Korean neighborhoods, they would set up something like these kitties, where you had immigrants would come and they could take a no interest loan,
and so there's this informal taxi network as well, and some of it is just to provide services for the community that they either don't know about or don't know how to obtain. But what it does create is a predatory environment for people who will take advantage of individuals with this. So, for example, crime. And so for instance, from everyday stuff, I need to make a phone call I need to set up an appointment with the MBA, but my English isn't very good. So what do? Oh, I know someone who can make the phone call for you for $20. And so they're charging for these things. And so this is the kind of stuff that isn't acceptable in my opinion. And again, it's a minority of the people, certain few individuals doing this, but it's something that we can't allow to happen. And so, I grew up coming here every summer, and I did part of my high school here as well. And Annapolis gave a lot to me. So I was, when I did high school here, I was in the Chesapeake Youth Symphony Orchestra. I wrote at the Annapolis Rowing Club. My formation, because of Annapolis, is great. So I want to contribute and give back to it now, in a very real and impactful way. And so that's for example, Latino community. In terms of housing for the Latino community, and going back to the monolithic image of the community or portrayal, what we have to understand is it's very diverse within the Hispanic and Latino community. So you have people who are would be considered expats because they're here in government capacity, or children of business individuals with large corporations. You have a middle class. And then you have a socioeconomically lower class as well. And the other aspect of it is that many of the families are mixed status families. So what I mean by that is, you may have the children or an uncle, an aunt, or one of the parents who are either U.S. citizens or have their green card or their residency papers. And then you may have one individual or two of family, and this is across many, that are undocumented. And so that stress and complexity of being undocumented, it takes a toll on the entire family. So with healthcare, for example, one of the things I did when I started with Jared was door knock, literally go door to door and Admiral Farragut, for example, and just speak to them about what are the issues, what do you care about, what are the concerns. And first of all, the recurring theme I heard was, among various things, healthcare. My health plan, and their healthcare plan is literally, I hope to not get sick.
My brother's on that plan.
And so, and again, I relate this back to how it's not good to have people who are uninsured or who are literally working themselves to death with no health care in the community. What you need to do is provide that. So if you don't have insurance and you eventually get sick, what do you do? What do they do? They go to the emergency room. You get a bill collection, and then the bill ends up being, $1,000, $5,000, depending on what it is. And of course, many individuals can't pay that. So it goes into collection. And so who's paying for that? And so if you would just provide a meaningful way to have more sliding scale health insurance opportunities based on your income for those individuals who can obtain insurance, you have a healthier community. And if you have a healthier community, it economically it's better for everyone.
But jumping into, when you took this position with Jared, was this with the intention of yourself? I don't think when you took it we knew whether Jared was staying or leaving.
No.
Were you looking to actually get into the politics of the city at that point, would you think?
I didn't know how it was going to happen. I knew that I have a passion for politics. I always did, and I came back from Hong Kong specifically to go to law school and get involved locally somehow. With the growing demographic of the population, my mom being a teacher here now for the last 9 years, she was telling me a lot about what was going on in the community. When I'd visit every year, I would go to the classrooms and speak to some of the students and learn about that. So I knew I wanted to be here and help the community and help the city as a whole for what it given to me. I didn't know in what capacity I was going to do that. I did know that I wanted to get into community organizing, and that's why I started volunteering and working a little bit at the school. because I thought that was a great way to first give back by being in the classroom, and also learn about what was going on in the community and help start organizing. And so I started with that, and the opportunity with Jared came up, and again, that was amazing. And the intention was, and it continues to be the work that he brought me on board for. So we continue to address the issues and challenges of the Hispanic Latino community as it affects the entire city. This isn't ward specific. This is it has no boundaries or no borders. But also, then from my work with Jared, I've been really grateful to be able to expand into various other aspects of the community issues. So with the environment, with fiscal policy, reviewing the budget and so forth. That's kind of what I'm focusing on now.
And where are you? You're looking to work in Ward 5,
mm-hmm.
And what is the biggest thing that you can? What are you going to bring to it? What's the biggest thing that you? I mean, right now you've said that you're looking for the equality bill that's coming in. Well, actually, mm-hmm. It will be 3 days ago, Monday, by the time this airs. But no, it won't.
No,
it'll be next Monday. That's right. We're this released tomorrow.
Okay.
But that will. What aside of that, what's the biggest thing that you can contribute to the greater community and the Latino community?
Yeah. So again, I think what I've learned from Jared in terms of being a good representative and being a responsible representative is focusing on constituent services and things that affect your ward directly. So in Ward 5, there have been several burglaries, for example, in Hunt Meadows, which is an issue, which should be a number one priority to tackle that.
They probably have my bike over there.
So public safety, I would say, is the main priority and concern, and I think it's probably what the core function of government is. You shouldn't ever feel fear or be a victim of a crime where you live. And so that's number one. And so crime is an element that I really want to tackle and contribute to. And one of the ways, is giving the proper support to the police department, but also investing and doing partnerships in the city and private and nonprofits, focusing on investment in recreational centers and youth programs and services. So I was doing some door knocking before the election, and I went to Newtown 20 in Woodside Gardens, and the conditions are terrible.
Deplorable.
Yeah, terrible. Yeah. And I spoke with many of the residents, and it was, too many houses or units boarded up. The recreational center is not active. You have what they call a basketball court, but it's not really. It's a slab of concrete and 2 hoops. But if you don't have actual programs,
it's a gathering spot and
a
trouble spot.
And so that's an area that needs immediate attention. We can't just rely on the police to solve all our socioeconomic issues. So we need to really partner with that. And so it is more community policing and it is more programs. Kids should not be left with time on their hands. They should be kept busy all the time.
Trust me on that. My kids are texting me right now. I think while we're talking, I'm texting them back. I'm going to empty the dishwasher.
Yeah. Hey, I'll tell you what. I'm going to get another glass of water. So if we can take a quick break here.
Okay, yeah, it's completely professional.
And then we'll just come back with that in a second. And, if it was a little bit later in the day, I'd go get beer. But it's water time.
Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we run this?
In 2015, Anne Arundel Medical Center had to transfer more than 1,100 mental health patients to a mental health facility outside of this area for care because the facilities they needed do not exist in our own community. These patients and families are our friends, loved ones, and co-workers, and they deserve better. Join Anne Arundel Medical Center and presenting sponsor M&T Bank on Saturday, April 29th in Annapolis at AAMC's Denim and Diamonds Bash. Denim and Diamonds is a wonderful evening under the stars, featuring fabulous cuisine, gourmet food trucks, silent auction, and dancing, all to support expanding mental health care in our community. It's an evening of great fun, but it's not just a party. For tickets and sponsorship, visit aamcdenimanddiamonds.org.
Denim and Diamonds. I'm going to be there. You?
If you get me tickets, I will. And you did
I
last
can.
time.
I've got tickets. I'll sell them to you. For $2.50 a pop. Will you be there?
Where?
Will you be there at the Denim and Diamonds?
Are you inviting me?
Sure. Come on now.
Thanks.
John's scalping tickets.
We'll hook it up. It was fun. Speaking of scalping, it was funny at the Military Bowl when I parked and walking across the parking lot. There were probably 12 guys that were trying to scalp tickets to me, and I'm just blowing through, and I'm like, dude, it's not sold out. You got screwed on your tickets.
So here's a national story that I've been all over today that I'm curious. And it's not the story about Trump, because I don't want to dwell on Trump, but it's a story about how, or it's an issue about how politics is changing. So the big story yesterday, or so it'll be a couple days ago when you hear this, is that
we don't need an ethics office because we are so ethical.
Yeah, well, that's what it was. So the Congressional Office of Ethics, which was set up, I think, about 8 years ago or 9 years ago, and that was basically they look at congressional issues.
Right, there were too many of them going to jail.
Right. Well, no. What it was that they were. I believe what it was, and someone who's former learned, which isn't hard, then I would contradict. But I think that they didn't like the fact that they were anonymous tips, that they couldn't face their accuser or whatever. So they didn't like the anonymity of that, and they wanted to roll it back to the ethics, the larger ethics committee. And there was a third part to it. That escapes me right now, but it was and they could stop investigations that were ongoing right now. So the optics of it were absolutely hellacious. Basically that President-elect Trump's coming in saying to drain the swamp, and the very first thing by the way, the very first thing they have to do is agree on the rules. So it was not out of place for them to do this because they're voting on the rules. Every Congress has to do that. And let's also point out that the Democrats in Congress were surely in favor of this as well, but they were just smarter and they kept their mouths shut. So the interesting part to me was that President Trump tweeted a two-part tweet because it was so long, basically saying, even though, and he didn't disagree with what they were doing, let's be clear about that, but he disagreed with the timing of that. And the issue of Twitter with the president is kind of interesting to me because it was someone that I thought it was obscenely unprofessional and dangerous for him to be on Twitter antagonizing North Korea as he did yesterday, and the Chinese, and sending the stocks of government contractors that are publicly traded into a tailspin. Yeah. But now I'm wondering, because he's communicating with there's no bullshit sort of press conferences going on, that he's communicating on a larger scale, and I was thinking, is this going to become new normal? And we remember John Leopold, that was 10 years ago when he was running, and he was standing on Chinkapin. And every morning he had his holding up that sign and he was waving, and everyone thought that was hilarious. But 2 years after that, everybody was holding signs and waving. That became the new normal in Anne Arundel County, is that you hold your signs and you wave during rush hour. But I was thinking about that. Is this where I initially thought that this was a horrible idea, someone get Twitter out of his hand? Is this something you're going to see in politics from now on? Like, even you, when you're running, is this? Not just the PR Twitter, not just the Twitter going, we support our uniform, our citizens in uniform defending this country. But you're actually, if you're coming out of a city council meeting and you're pissed off at someone, are you blasting them on Twitter? That seems to be kind of, not that could be the new normal. And is that a bad thing?
I don't know. I guess we're going to see in the next 4 years.
Yeah, but we're watching with him. But you see, you're seeing that he's setting the tone. That you're seeing, like, think about it. I can't remember who's the candidate. Is South Carolina that the congressman? He's the "you lie" guy. That he said that to the president. But there are people defending him after that, going, well, he called him out, and he's a patriot for doing that. And then all of a sudden that became okay. And I'm not saying. Personally, I don't think it's okay. I don't think it would be okay if anyone did that with President Trump, actually. But that's the new normal. So I was thinking about that today, is that, social media has become important. We're talking about Jared. Jared's a prolific user of Twitter and Facebook as a communicator.
Yeah, no,
and the mayor does, because that's what the mayor does. I don't know if it's him himself or he has someone doing it for him.
Yeah.
But
he has a CIO, Chief Instagram Officer. Taking care of
that. But that said, there's two ways to use social media, and there's one that you use it to do the political platitudes, which is basically the things that you're supposed to say. But are you going to use it like President-elect Trump does, or can one use it where all of a sudden you're pissed off because of a vote in council, and you're calling them out, going, "I think this is ridiculous. This is,
I mean, I'll start by saying I think someone should take Twitter out of President-elect Trump's hands.
I said that on Twitter the other day. I said, I love Twitter, but now I realize that it's going to be used at 3 a.m. to start a war.
But I do agree with the fact that you have to find different ways to communicate with people, and some of those will be traditional ways. I always prefer, of course, it limits the amount of people you can communicate with, but the person-to-person contact or the phone conversation. But social media is extremely important to inform nowadays. Citizen journalism has been developed because of it as well. But I think the most important aspect is how it relates to transparency. And so something that's lacking in many governments, whether it's at the federal level or locally, oftentimes is transparency, is knowing what is actually happening, what someone's position is, what people are working on, and I think that's something that's extremely important for anyone who's a public servant or representing. And so if you're I think you need to be using Twitter and social media to be informing the community and the city, definitely. But I think perhaps it shouldn't be as impulsive as, Donald Trump uses it, where, you need to think about the impact, especially at the level of a president or the head of a county or a city. Your words matter and they have an impact. And so you really need to think about how you're going to be using that, how it's going to affect, downstream.
It's kind of funny. I'm thinking about way back when Mayor Panelidis first took off.
I know what you're going to say. I'm thinking this too.
And this has Twitter evolved into the note that he passed?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Alderman Arnett said,
"Thanks for effing me."
Hold it. Here's your explicit warning. Texted around.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
Yeah,
it was. But I mean, that's what. So if you're looking at Donald Trump as a disruptor, and not just on a national level, is he going to reset what is the normal? If people are sick of politics as normal, as usual, then Hillary Clinton would have been absolutely ineffective, because she would have been more of the same, frankly. She would have been. Yeah. So I'm not putting a positive spin on it, and there's people who say, well, why do you have to? Because I'm just saying that I have concerns because of his proclivity to be so impulsive, and he's the very last person he spoke to. But what if he is a disruptor, and all of a sudden, you have this sort of thing where you have county council and city council where they're having these open battles on Twitter and Facebook. Let's put the lack of civility aside for a second, but all of a sudden you're seeing the truth behind this, and wouldn't that be a good thing because you have more transparency? I mean, for example, John, so you follow this. Rate from Moyer Cohen Panelidis the transparency of each administration.
I think it's gotten progressively better.
Okay.
I mean, Ellen worked in secrecy. She was hiding, not Ellen personally, but I mean, the medallions were hidden in the closet.
Yeah, well, I think she had some problems.
I mean, there was a number of things there, and then I think Mayor Cohen came out and brought a lot to it. And I think as our technology evolves, transparency is just more exposed. I think you've got. I mean, there's nothing anymore. And I was talking to my Teresa the other night. I said I don't. The only place I expect privacy is in my bathroom and my bedroom. To be honest with you, we're sitting here right now across the table, and Apple could certainly turn on my webcam or
sure, the NSA,
my camera in there on the phone. Samsung TVs, they've got the cameras that they have the ability.
But I guess my point is this: is that we're talking about making policy, and policy there has to be the art of the deal, which is behind closed doors. There's compromise and what have you. But let's look. Let's use the Moyer administration for example. And my biggest problem with the Trump supporters and Trump is that he shoots an arrow and they all draw a target around it. Like everything he's doing is by design, and that. But he is relatively open with what he's doing for the most part, which I kind of appreciate. But let's look at the Market House 10 years ago. That cost between $6 and $10 million, depending on who you listen to.
And we still don't know how many air conditioners have.
But we still don't know what happened. I mean, that's a lot of money. So, unless you put in a public information request, to find out, sift through the emails and what have you, you don't really know what happened. So, I mean, maybe this is a good thing that all of a sudden you're seeing some transparency. I mean, it's going to be ugly.
Yeah. Oh, I think it is. I mean, you're peeling back the layers of the.
But wouldn't you rather know that? I mean, wouldn't you?
Oh, I would. Yeah, I think you can make a much more informed decision. I mean, I think we had the discussion too when we did our election episode, in that, and granted, wherever this hack originated from, whatever it is, I mean, it was not. They didn't release the Republican stuff; they released the Democratic stuff.
Right.
I think to a degree it made for use the argument, but a more informed voter to see what the Democrats were doing on that.
Yeah, and I was in favor of that
for the right side. I mean, and I think I'm all for it. I mean, I think for a public information, I mean, if I were running for mayor, I would turn around and say, okay, fine, Public Information Act. I said, you get them whatever the hell they ask for. End of the conversation. Pass it through legal, and they take out the identifying stuff, an address or something like that. They redact as appropriate, but there should be no questions. I mean,
definitely transparency. Creates or generates accountability.
Right, and you can't always have it because you got to be able to make a deal. I mean,
exactly.
And I get that, but I mean, you
don't always need to see how the sausage is made.
Exactly, but I mean, I will say that if you look at Julian Assange and you look at Glenn Greenwald and all these things, that they wouldn't have existed if you didn't have the overclassification of information that didn't have to be classified. Is because it would embarrass certain donors or certain congressmen or certain vendors, so that they started classifying everything. So I mean, Julian Assange, WikiLeaks, no matter what side you end up, I think is necessary. I really do, and I think Glenn Greenwald was necessary. But that was the fact because you had a government that was being overly secretive, and that was the Obama administration, and you had reporters who frankly weren't doing their jobs when they're investigative.
That's the evolution of transparency.
Yeah, and then you have to think about what portion of it is for the public good. So if you take WikiLeaks just posting everything and anything versus how Edward Snowden handled it, where he does it through journalists and they
it was brilliant the way they did it
and
too.
They review it, and so it doesn't put anyone or any interest of the United States in danger per se. Then that's a more responsible, if you want to look at it like that, approach than just laying everything out there. Well,
the way they did it was brilliant too. With when he released it to Glenn Greenwald, who's an ass, but I mean, it was but they released a certain amount of information, and the Obama administration said, "Well, that's not true," and then say, "Oh yeah," and they released more, and so people were like, "Why are they stretching it out?" Because the Obama administration didn't know what was coming up next, and that's the way to do it. I thought it was very, and you can. I mean, conservatives hated WikiLeaks and Julian Assange. They thought he should put his head on a spike until he released all the DNC emails, and now they're ready to throw him a parade. It just goes to show that whatever serves your side. But I don't know. I was just thinking, I just wonder moving forward. I mean, because obviously you're going to use social media.
Definitely.
And it's. But I mean, I think it's.
I think it's really important to you to inform the public, and not just of whatever the outcome is, but throughout the process in a very responsible way. Because again, I learned this from Jared. You want to have all the stakeholders at the table with a voice and understand any issue from any perspective, and come up with the best approach. And so if you're using Twitter to insult someone because they disagree with a position or so forth, and that doesn't lead to some sort of compromise or outcome that benefits the public that you're trying to serve, then you shouldn't use it in that way. But if it's going to create that transparency and that informed citizenry that we desperately need and everyone deserves, then it's a good thing.
Yeah, double-edged sword. I mean, Twitter can be a one-way tool and a two-way tool.
Yeah.
I mean, I can broadcast my opinion without any kind of feedback whatsoever, or I can ask for feedback and work it two ways there. Well, you're also involved in any number of different things. I mean, obviously you're running for Ward 5. Do we have a website set up or anything like this?
Not yet. I will be making an announcement.
Is it going to be like Marc Rodriguez from Mexico City, who used to live in Hillsmere, but now is running for Alderman for Ward5.com?
No. We're working on my messaging to make it very clear and concise.
I just got that. Yeah. It took me a second to catch up.
Yeah, and in the meantime,
it wasn't very fun.
I am, and I'll be focusing on this for the rest of the year as well. I've been invited to participate on a few boards in the city, which I'm grateful on. So they're doing some great work for the community.
Which boards?
Seats for Success, nonprofit serving the community. Yeah, so they're doing great work in the front lines, and so I've been honored to be a part of that conversation there. District 30 Democratic Club. I'm on the board of that.
Yeah, you Democrats. I know. I know all about you guys. The secret little meetings, the handshakes, and everything else.
And Annapolis did turnout for Chris Van Hollen and Hillary Clinton. So compared, but anyways, neither here nor there. I recently joined the Anne Arundel Conflict Resolution Center.
Okay.
So
over there on River Road.
Yep.
They still share the office with the volunteer center.
I don't know. I'll have my first meeting on Monday, so I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a quick question for you. Okay, so we're waiting for a website from Marc Rodriguez for Ward 5, and that's exciting. Is there any competition in Ward 5 that you've heard of so far?
I haven't. Well, or maybe I shouldn't say. I don't know. Maybe or maybe. No, I haven't heard of any competition. I assume there will be, and it always makes for more. I think a healthier race, more competitive race, but I haven't heard of anyone.
Well, I will say, I think that as far as looking at the aldermen that are currently on the council, I think that as far as a mentor goes, you probably have picked one of the better ones. When you say that's a fair, I mean, Jared is very good at looking at both sides and
very detail oriented.
And I think that's good. What do you think about the mayor's race? Okay, we've got Mike Panelides and Gavin Buckley in there.
Yeah, a mystery dark horse out there that everyone's speculating about.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about the dark horse that everyone's speculating about.
And we have a phone call in.
And we'll be talking to him or her a little bit later this month.
I mean, I think it's a very important election. Local politics is what I think affects your daily life, and I think at the end of the day you need someone, mayor with vision, with leadership, and takes everyone in all areas of Annapolis into account and look at it from a holistic point of view. I mean, things just don't grow in a city or develop responsibly organically. You have to make active decisions, have policy initiatives, and really have that vision to carry out. I'm grateful that we have a great city manager, Tom Andrews.
Do you think city manager Tom Andrews will remain?
I don't know. I haven't spoken with him about it. I heard that he may.
My thing when he first came on board was with the mayor was going through some sort of a turmoil, and it was oh my gosh, what's this Republican mayor doing here and everything else. And I mean, Tom Andrews is a perfect candidate. And he's wonderfully qualified. He's a great city manager.
Yeah,
but I'm saying, okay, here's a retired guy that came out of retirement.
Yeah.
Lives close to the area, knows the deal, and I mean, if it was 4 years and done, it was no skin off of his teeth.
Yeah.
I would hope he would leave or would remain, but I think I think that's certainly a challenge there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, So
I think this is the month that you're going to see all the dust settle, where all the candidates are going to come out because they got to start raising money now. We're what 10 months out.
The mayor has a big war chest. How's your war chest?
That's a personal question.
Do you have a war chest, or is it more like a community chest? In Monopoly.
Yeah.
Are you actively fundraising and whatnot?
So
for the campaign?
I haven't started to fundraise.
This is where you should hit him up for money right here on the.
No, but we will, and you're obviously invited.
Invited to contribute.
We will be. Jared and I will be hosting a joint event. We believe it'll be February 1st. I'll confirm that. But that's where we will. I will make an announcement about my decision to run.
That'll be the official announcement.
That'll be the official announcement.
Do you know where that's going to be potentially?
Potentially Sin Fronteras, Walter's place.
Yeah, he's hosted a few before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Walter puts strong margaritas.
He does, actually. Yeah, that's some lubrication
knock
there.
You on your ass.
Well, anyway, so hey, Mark, thanks for coming in, especially
thank you.
on short notice, and thanks for hanging. Of course, we're going to have you come back whenever you want before the election, and we can talk about some of the specific issues.
And provided that you have a competitor or a challenger, we're going to be doing. We'd like to do some debates.
Yeah, we do some debate series.
Great.
It's all do them over beers.
It'd be kind of boring if there was nobody challenging you, though.
I don't know.
You'd be okay with that?
Yeah, I'd be okay with it.
Okay. All right, Mark. Thanks.
Thank you.
Where can people find you? So that you got the webpage going, but
no, the webpage is going. We'll launch it the day after the event. They can find me through my email, Marc, MARC, at AnnapolisWard5.com. Or on Facebook.
And that's the number 5.
The number 5, that's correct. And yeah, so thank you. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Awesome, great. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, the Maryland Crabs podcast, on Google Play and iTunes, and now iHeartRadio. Although I don't think you can subscribe there, but and they're working out the search function as we speak. You can find us on Twitter at MD Crabs Podcast, and you can find John at Annapolis and me at Tim Hamilton 47. You can find us at the Facebook page, the Facebook group on the Maryland Crabs. Info at themarylandcrabs.com. And then
if you're up very early, you can listen to me on WRNR.
I am not.
Yeah, I know. I know, you're usually hungover.
Yes. But
we'll just end it right there, right?
I hate you, John.
This has been the Maryland Crabs Podcast with Tim Hamilton and John Fernay. Sure to follow them in all the regular places, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and online at themarylandcrabs.com. Take a moment to rate us on iTunes. Now, get the hell out of my kitchen. Seriously, go!
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.